it's Neil Gardner here once again at talking ... books with Darwin. He's the boss as always. We're back here at Shea Ladbroke Audio, and look at the guest I've got.
I'm a guest.
He is a guest. He is a god of a guest. He is known by many, many monikers.
Yes.
I grew up with him being the sixth. What does that mean? Yes, of course he was, and still is.
Old Sixie.
Old Sixie himself. Colin Baker, everybody. Woo!
Hello.
Here he is.
I'm a guest. The G is soft. Jest. I'm a jest.
Clever. See, it's the problem with always getting guests who are more intelligent than me. They come up with better ways of starting the show.
I don't think you do that very often, do you?
I don't know, you haven't watched much of the videos. So welcome to Talking Books. This is where we talk about books.
Books.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stupid name, really. I should be talking audiobooks, but that's trying to be clever.
Audiobooks are books.
They are, that's true, and they do talk.
A book doesn't have to be made of paper.
This is very true. Some of them are on Kindle.
Yeah, or parchment.
So you've been here today recording a book in a day.
I have.
Amazing. 160 odd pages.
It was indeed.
That's amazing. And you're still alive.
And I'm still alive and the voice is still working.
It is.
Which is remarkable.
It still sounds like you.
It does.
So this is, I mean, you've done a lot of audio in your time, but this is kind of, in your recent time, like your first non-hooey, sci-fi thing.
I did a lot in the 70s of audio stuff, and then it seemed to just go away.
Yeah.
I think in the 80s I was busy doing other things.
Yes.
I've always enjoyed it because you don't have to learn it.
No, exactly. And you're not put off by like a big slab of text in front of you.
No, I'm quite lucky that I've always had the ability, because you do it instinctively, flicking to the end of the sentence to see how many clauses there are. and there's that old trick of occasionally get caught by, it's really nice to see you, he said in an Irish accent. And you go, bugger.
Well, it's that thing about prep, isn't it? You've got to have read it before you get to the studio. Yes. Young audiobook people learn this.
and have your voices ready.
Yes.
Even if they are rejected.
Well, this is interesting. You used to do books on tape back in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
So when I first started doing audiobooks as a producer with the BBC, we were expected as the producers to have done all of the prep, and so the actors who were busy doing 100 other things could just literally turn up, having of course read the book in advance, but any question about any character we would have to know the answer to. That's kind of been put more onto the narrator now. The narrator does the majority of the prep, because presumably the producers are now more busy in terms of we're just rattling through book after book.
I kind of think we both ought to know.
Well, I'd like to hope
a certain amount about it. You certainly trumped me on that one on a couple of occasions.
There's a couple today. Yeah. Not always, though. But when you go about, so with this, let's say it's the first one for many years, how did you go about your prep side of it? Was it just one straight read? Did you do a couple of reads?
It was one straight read, and on the way through, if there were words like, I can't remember them now.
We had some Polish,
something Weibel. What was he?
Oh, we had a Feldwebel.
Feldwebel.
Yeah, good German.
Most of the German names were not too tricky.
No, we had a Schmidt, and that was about it, I think, really, wasn't it?
And there was a lot of place names that were capable of being pronounced in different ways. And I just looked things up. Yeah. And there was a Welsh one.
That's right. Yes,
it was a Welsh one.
That's good.
And online, I could hear somebody saying it.
So it was really odd because it was today's the first day I found in an old bookshop an original BBC place names pronunciation guidebook. So it was really good to, when you were saying it, I thought, I can use my book for the first time. And look through, it goes, yeah, you got it right. Yeah, that's good.
But I'm a bit of a word nut.
Yes. Yes.
I read. There's a lovely book called The Loom of Language by Lancelot Hogben, which
good name.
My father had, and I plucked it from the shelf. And it's all about how language evolves, and how the Romantic languages and the Teutonic languages, where they overlapped and where they parted. And
he got there before Stephen Fry in his BBC Radio 4 series about the English language, presumably.
I did listen to that, yes.
Yeah.
And I love all that.
Fascinating.
I've always loved all that.
Yeah.
And the few bits of writing I've done, I always find a name from my character from some obscure language that, if they're an unpleasant person, might be the Lithuanian for git.
Interesting. Well, talking about writing your own stuff, the lovely Geoffrey Beavers, who we both know from our Doctor Who work, of course, writes his own books and also reads them himself. Do you think this is something you might like to do as a writer and now audiobook narrator?
I have written some stuff which perhaps I ought to. And Yes, you're right, I would.
Should we both put like
Well, I would-
light bulb signs above us?
I wouldn't let anybody else read my stuff. And way back in the 70s, when I was doing a lot of that, there was one of those companies, it was quite famous, it used to do records as well. There's a company that's gone now. They got me in to read some stories, and they said, it's really hard, because we have to balance both sides of the
Yes, of course.
tape.
Yes, yeah.
And it's hard to find someone who can write a story that's 11,000 words long.
Exactly.
I said, well, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And he said, what? I said, tell me what you need. And he told me, and a week later I sent him 3 stories.
Oh, wow.
And they used all of them.
Excellent.
And then I got to read them as well, which helped.
Oh, wow, that's
And I've still got them. They're now my copyright.
Aye.
So maybe I should do
Another
them.
light bulb over my head goes off. Well, that's interesting. Many years ago, when we used to have to, at the end of the process, not just create digital files, but we'd have to create audio CDs, but also for many years, audio cassette masters. You'd have to balance the way you cut the masters, because the two sides had to balance, but also I've got to try and make this. Side 1 had to be slightly longer than side 2. So that it wouldn't ever, because if side 2 was longer,
then you would turn over and you'd be in the middle of
the wrong place. Yeah. So it was like you get your head around the math. I used to I had a notebook with endless math trying to do this. Like, oh man, I failed maths at school. This is such a weird experience. So how's today been for you? Has it been nice getting back into it?
Today's been great because I'm now a person of a certain age and one's voice gets less fluid.
Well, the 20s will do that for you. You know.
And what I was reading was the memoirs of a man in his 20s as well.
Yeah, actually interesting. But from his
but viewed from
his age,
same age,
about
the same age as I am now. We've been doing it all day, haven't we?
We have. We started just before 10. We finished just after 6. We had a couple of short breaks and a lunch break.
And that's a whole book.
You've done 6 hours of straight recording.
And my voice is still me.
You're still you.
So I'm delighted. It's restored my faith in myself.
I'm pleased.
Because you can start to be trapped by the knowledge of being old.
Well, also I was wondering if you could feel trapped by. Obviously, you're very popular as the Sixth Doctor. Big Finish get you in all the time. In fact, you're kind of the founding Doctor of Big Finish, really, aren't you?
Well, Sylvester and I, and
you
Peter.
And Sylvan, yeah, exactly. And you've done so much. Is it true you've got way more adventures in hours?
There was a point.
Audio?
There was a point before Tom descended from Mount Olympus and started doing some Big Finishes where I had done more Doctor Who stories than Tom. Whether that's true now or not, I don't know.
Sure, maybe a neck and neck's like a race. Yeah.
I must ask Big Finish to research that for me.
But they did give you the opportunity to actually round out your Doctor's story, didn't they?
Yes.
By having your regeneration scene.
Which I have to take my hat off to the great Nick Briggs.
Yes.
Because he'd asked me a few years earlier, and I've been a bit diffident about it. I still feel grumpy. And then he said, I promise you it'll be a good one.
Yeah.
And he submitted one to me. And I said, yes, I've got to do that.
It is a great audio.
Because what he did was create a series of events that came together logically to the point where that awful wriggling around in my costume with a wig on happened with Sylvester, which was ludicrous.
It was.
But now it's not ludicrous.
Excellent.
Now it has the proper springboard for that moment. Yeah. And it's exciting and credible. And my Doctor is a bloody hero.
He is. He's a hero to my generation. So
bloody hero.
Yeah, and see, bear in mind, if it had been a story for Tom, then no doubt the wig would have had to been sentient or something, you know.
If it had been a story for Tom, he would have had to have been, what was he, an archivist or something in that strange story?
The librarian or the archivist, yes. Oh. Yeah, well, you know, hey.
No.
There's only one Sixth Doctor, so, you know. So, but you've also done Sixth Doctor with us in straight single voice audio reads.
I have.
How does it feel as an actor? Obviously, you're coming back to a character you played many years ago, but to revisit that character, not just in audio drama, but also in straight narration, where you've got to be the narrator and then this character from 30 odd years ago.
All I can say was it seemed all right.
You're okay.
I was quite happy about it.
Just walk back into it.
And I enjoyed being able to do other people's voices as well.
Yes. Well, that was what I was going to ask about. Obviously, the dramatic side, you are just the Sixth Doctor, but in the audiobook world, you are everybody.
And it was lovely to do Nicola Bryant, you know. Doctor.
We love Nicola. She's always
I
fun.
adore Nicola.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to not take the mickey out of, but to present her vocally
Yes.
from this to
Well, that's the magic of audio.
yeah.
So one of my favourite things you ever did, actually one of the first things you did with me was the Two Doctors.
Was it?
Yeah, and it's where you get to be Patrick as much as yourself. There it is.
Oh my
I'm gonna
goodness.
bring that in for a bit of... So he signed it for me. Yes, I'm a fanboy.
He speaks
There
with
you are.
unforked tongue.
Have a look at that, baby.
And I did all of that.
You did all of that. You made the case. You sung the theme tune.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you pay me?
I think the Beeb might have paid you.
Oh, well, good. Glad somebody did.
No, someone did. But that, again, you got to be...
Did I do Fraser Hines as well?
Yeah, you did everyone, including the Sontarans. And Jacqueline Pierce, wasn't it?
Ah,
As well.
dear Jackie.
So you really got to go through the gamut in that
I
one.
miss her.
Yeah, a very, very sad loss.
Yeah. We're losing some good ones at the moment.
But there's still a whole generation of you left who were there, who can remember their voices and can bring them
Yeah.
back to life for the rest of us. So we've got them on the classic shows, but we can still be doing new audio.
Has anyone else done my voice?
I don't think anyone has.
Somebody must have read one that I'm in.
No, I think
That
you're the
isn't
only
me.
person doing that generation. I'm not sure about the old BBC audiobook
Right.
titles.
'Cause I'd have
But
to
in the
listen to
new,
that.
In the new era,
Someone taking the mick out of me.
I think the only person who might have done a one-liner as you would be Dan Starkey.
Good actor.
And there's an audiobook where the Doctor suddenly kind of walks down a corridor and he steps through each of his incarnations, and each one says one line. I think it was Dan who did it, and he kind of jumps quickly line by line. But Dan's a great mimic anyway.
Yeah. And a great brain too. He's
Now
sharp.
there's a man who knows his language.
Yes.
So yeah, no, we've actually had him on the show talking language stuff. It's very fascinating to do. So away from away from science fiction, fantasy, away from being the sixth, is there moving forwards in audiobooks anything you'd like to do? Any genres you'd like to get into?
Loads of stuff. Loads.
We're talking to the commissioning editors here now, the publishers.
You see, it's kind of uncool for the Doctor to say this, but my passions are kind of geeky.
Geek out.
I
That's
mean,
what
the
we're
stuff
here for.
I like.
Look,
I mean,
look.
for instance, has anybody ever done the Thomas Covenant books?
We'll look it up and find out after the show.
Because the author is sort of a friend.
Wow, you're in there.
He dedicated one of the books to me.
Oh, really?
Not because
fantastic.
only because my doctor was watching my doctor at a period in his life.
You're one of his main doctors.
Well, his private life was not great at the time, and my doctor made him feel better. And then we met each other and found out that I was a fan of his and he was a fan of mine.
Oh,
so
that's
we
fantastic.
met in America. I haven't spoken to him for some years now.
We'll have to look it up.
But I've never seen his books
Yeah.
as having been. I mean, they're mammoth, and
Could be interesting.
maybe I'm being
Wouldn't do that in a
vainglorious
I mean,
in thinking I could do it.
yeah.
But have you read them?
I don't know them actually. No. I'll have to look
Stephen
them up.
Donaldson.
Yeah.
He also wrote some brilliant hard sci-fi. What was he called? Agnes Thermopyle.
There's a name and a half.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so science fiction, fantasy, which obviously ties in with what
I like
we
all
know
that.
you for.
And I'm very partial to the 20s.
Oh,
So anything that's Dear Martin Jarvis does them all.
Yes.
But all that Worcester stuff, and
yeah,
I love all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's more my period humour-wise.
Okay, that's interesting.
But there's tons of books that it would be a joy to read. I wouldn't want to read something that it was in Russian, for instance. You know.
It would be tough. Yeah, I think we'd have to dig out some kind of translation for you. But you never know. I think you got the voice for some of that Russian literature. It would suit your style.
And I'm quite lucky because I studied the classics, Latin and Greek.
Yeah.
There was a time in the 70s when I did a lot of those kind of instruction books with medical things.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
And those words don't frighten me.
Yeah, I think a lot
because
of
I know what they mean.
I think you could be very quickly maybe become on par with someone like Saul Reiklin for like king of non-fiction books, historical and medical. And
Who's that?
Saul Reiklin, amazing
never come across
narrator.
him.
Yeah, you probably would have worked with him at some point. A really, really genuinely lovely man, and just perfect for that kind of non-fiction, wise elder gentleman voice. So
yes, I'll buy that.
You've just come back into audiobooks, and hopefully now next year we'll have a lot more.
That would be nice.
Is there anything that you would like to know about audiobook world, where we're at the moment and what's going on, from a narrator's perspective?
That's interesting. No.
Well, that sums that up. Okay, well, we've got things like... Okay, here's an interesting one. You quite happily work off on an iPad. How do you find that? Do you find it's easy enough for you to work with?
I don't have to worry about making noise with turning pages.
Are you okay with marking it up, using something like iAnnotate? Or
I use iAnnotate, but I haven't yet found a way of... I know there's tools there, but I'm quite good if I'm given a note, even of a whole line, of remembering it. Like we did that once.
No,
you
absolutely.
told me one.
Yeah,
it was only a line and a half long.
But you had a very good memory.
But
for
I can. That's working in television does that, because very often you get a rewrite, and you have to do it on the spot. Short-term memory goes in short-term memory. If you ask me to do it now, not a syllable.
I can't even remember what it was.
But
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's quite a few people who are still shying away from going over to digital, so we still have to print out printed scripts, and it's interesting.
It's such a waste of paper.
Well, it feels like a waste of paper. Actually, interesting. You just did the job last week. Lovely actress who asked for paper script and did it. Unfortunately, the script that was delivered, they printed it both sides.
Oh.
Which meant you couldn't even kind of set up two side by side. You always had to sort of... But of course, she'd been doing it for so long that she had prepped the script properly, so she had written in the end of each sentence on the bottom of the page.
Oh yeah,
so she could get to a full stop.
Yeah,
and then make
with the iPad you can control the whole time.
You glide it
it's
up.
like auto cue.
Yeah,
although you're running it.
There is someone who came in, I think last year, who's really proud of using iPad. Quite a young person, but their iPad was set to page turn. So just like a paper script, it's like, but digitally they had to sort of tap the screen and then the whole page kind of turned or flips.
Oh, and did a kind of...
Yeah, and so they had to keep trying to remember what the word was they were about to say as they flipped it. And again, if you just change the option, you can just slide and scroll the page up. It's like this look of revelation on their face that this is something you could do.
I'm wondering whether I should, because I don't have a laptop, and I wonder whether I should do it on a laptop, which would give me a bigger screen.
If you did, you'd have to go with one that's a fanless device. So there's a few audiobook narrators fanless. So basically like a MacBook Air.
Oh.
You can't have all other laptops eventually, because they get hotter, they'll turn a fan on and you'll hear it on the microphone.
Thank you so much for saying that. So
you're actually better, and here's a little bit of tech help. Obviously, if you need a laptop for laptop's sake, then something like a MacBook Air, which doesn't have a fan in it, is what you want. But if you don't need to have that kind of physical keyboardy thing, then a lot of people are now moving over to the iPad Pros, because they're 11 and 12 inches.
Yeah, that's probably bigger than the one I've been
using. Much bigger than the one you've got, like a 9-inch one, I think.
Yeah.
And I use that as a producer, because basically it's the same size as an A4 piece of paper.
Yes.
It's much better for my eyesight. It means I can do this an awful lot. I can sit up, I can read it better. I got rid of a lot of my neck aches and back aches that I was having from squinting down at a smaller screen. But also you can make your notes a lot easier on it. So when you do finally work out how to use the iAnnotate tools, you'll be able to write in a lot easier.
Yeah.
Or make underlines, or all that lovely shorthand that narrators are so clever at using. So something
but
like
you see, I've never been, when I'm rehearsing a play, if you look at some... I'm working with an actor. The other person's page is covered,
absolutely covered
in writing, things the director said. Mine looks exactly the same as the moment I picked it up, because I always go on the basis, if I don't remember it, then it probably wasn't right.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Which is kind of arrogant of me, I suppose.
Yeah,
but it's very rare.
Right? If you're getting it right, then
it's very rare I write anything on a script.
I would say with audiobooks, there is a need to make a certain amount of notation, just because of the sheer length of the thing. Particularly if you're going to go do a novel with characters. So just having, like, when a character first appears, having a note next to it for accent or tone or style, or whether or not it's the murderer and not to give it away. I mean, some people still will use an
I can
iPad to
remember
read,
that.
but they'll bring
If
in
I've
a
read
piece
it,
of paper.
I'll remember that.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely, but it never.
I can see for accent.
Yeah, especially
Is
as
that-
you say,
Is that the German one? Is that
well, yeah, it could be. I mean, there are some books, obviously, that only reveal that he spoke with a broad Birmingham accent on the last page. It's like,
well, you have to have
please
read
don't
it
do that.
all.
Well, you have to, but it would be helpful. Yeah, it's one of those notes that as producers, we'd love the publishers when they book an audiobook to give us like a one sheet that would just say key accents, key places,
Yes.
key pronunciations. Because who's the person who knows that information best?
Yeah, the writer.
It's the author, and if the author's no longer with
publisher.
us, then the publisher should know that
Yeah.
information. Presumably somewhere it's been written up. Doesn't mean you guys shouldn't be prepping. It just means you don't miss something. Hopefully. Which we all do. I've had it a couple of times in my career.
But then there are times, I mean, I remember when I was doing, which one was it? It was the Philip Martin story in my second series, the one with Syl.
Okay.
And there was a scene where I had to torture Nicola.
Yes.
She was out on a cliff and I was haranguing her and telling her she should die. I can't remember what it was now.
Wow.
And I said to the director, I said, in this scene, it was evidence being played by the Matrix.
Okay.
So is the Matrix lying? And that never happened.
Ah.
Or I'd just come out of the mind probe. Has the mind probe affected me?
You.
And I've gone mad for a bit.
Yeah.
Or am I, knowing I'm being watched, am I pretending to be evil?
Interesting.
And the director said, I don't know, ask the script editor. So I asked the script editor, he said, I don't know, ask Philip Martin. I got through to Philip Martin, he said, I don't know, I didn't write that, Eric Sayward did. So I decided to
Make your decision.
make my decision.
Yeah, yeah.
And my decision was, in order to make the scene interesting, it's a complete lie. Never happened. The Matrix is lying,
Yeah.
so I could be horrible.
Yeah.
How the audience is supposed to know that, I've no idea until I tell them now.
DVD commentary, or this,
Yes.
in fact, this very video.
Which I did
We've
do on
just-
the DVD
we've
commentary.
just revealed it twice now in
But
your life.
I think more work goes into doing what we've just done.
Well, yeah, and it is interesting because we've just done a non-fiction, a memoir, in want of a better term. So very factual, although it's first person, which is quite interesting. The way that it's been written, it feels very quite like a novel in the way he's written it and put it together. Where many non-fictions obviously are much more dispassionate and stand backish. Do you find from your work as an actor that you can put characters into quite dry text, and is it something that audiobook narrators should be looking to do? So if they've got a block of text,
You see, I haven't done enough to know what I should do,
what
and
what would you like to do?
Therefore, I choose.
Yeah.
For instance, today when we're reading this book, I gave somebody a Scottish accent because he was called Jock.
Yeah.
We never talked about it beforehand. I just did it. I thought, well, he'll say no if he thinks it's wrong. And there were one or two others
Well, I like the fact we did. To be fair, the German characters had a Germanic, slightly typical voice, but they were very short pieces
Yes.
of dialogue.
Yes.
And you needed to know it was a German person talking.
Yes.
They didn't necessarily say "said the Feldwebel" or "said
No.
the Commandant" or something. So I think that helps. To be able to bring a little bit of acting into non-fiction certainly helps.
And I was imagining a POW lampooning the
Absolutely.
voice of the person
Yes.
talking to him.
Interesting, as you're going through that section, through my mind was going those Spike Milligan books.
Yes.
Which are so hilarious, yet when you strip the comedy away, it's quite a serious,
Yeah, exactly.
scary tale that Spike was telling of
Yeah.
his time. And I think this is similar. This is a very serious POW story, but he gives it a nice amount of
Yeah.
humanity. It's not just woe and dread and pain and fear.
And it's a very subjective memoir of a memory of a man of my age for things that happened when he was 21.
No, it's
That
astonishing.
happened to a 21-year-old.
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? That?
I look at, well, I don't have a son, I have 4 daughters, and the youngest is now 26. But anything like that at the age of, myself at 21, I wouldn't have coped with any of that. I go, can I go
I was
home
struggling
now?
when my car broke down at 21. But then the times do bring about the people that are required. So I think,
Yes.
what an amazing generation they were. And it's nice to have a
They
book
were,
like
weren't they?
this that
Yeah.
can keep telling us those stories in new ways. So it's been a positive first, or new, I don't want to say first audiobook experience because you've done so many, but
It's
new audiobook experience for
yes, yes. I haven't done a non-Whoey one for a while,
you. No.
and
It's certainly something
it's
we
whetted my appetite.
coming back for more.
Yes,
You've got the energy, the stamina, the will.
I enjoy
voices.
doing it. Yes, you do lose yourself in the story.
Well, it's quite amazing how quick those 6 hours kind of pass.
Yes.
Aren't they? It always surprises me that it's this time of year when it's winter that 3:30's been and gone, the sun's gone. And it's like, well, blimey, where'd that go?
Not long now before it starts going the other way.
Yeah, all exciting. Get our evenings back.
Yeah.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves here. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up with that because Darwin's ringing the buzzer.
Darwin, I'm very sorry to keep you so long.
No, well, he doesn't mind.
I'm going to bring my friend to meet you next time I come here.
Yes, that's going to be a whole new video.
And he'll be on video.
Very exciting.
I can promise that.
But what a pleasure it's been. We've had Sixie here. I'm going to call him Colin Baker because that's his
It's
real
after
name.
60 now.
It is.
It's well after 60.
Wow. It's almost like it feels like you should have a sweet name.
Is it nearly 7?
I think it might be. Let's have a look.
Is it McCoy time?
Oh, never quite there. It's never quite ready for that yet. That takes a big inhalation first. But we did have the lovely Sophie on one of these episodes.
I adore
So that
Sophie.
was absolutely fantastic.
Sophie's a cracker.
Yeah, well, they're all great people. So thank you very much for joining us on Talking
A pleasure.
Books, and we'll get him back for another one of these next year. This is our last one for 2018, so what a way to go out. What a year it's been. Here at Ladbroke Audio, we've done over 150 audiobooks this year in these two studios. We're really proud. So I just want to say a big thank you to all the narrators who have been, well, amazing, because you guys are amazing. I mean, look at the talent. Look at the talent going on here. To the staff here, particularly to Morrison, my other producer, and the amazing Steve, who's our main editor, and to Susan, who does a lot of our proofing, and to everyone else involved, all our freelancers and people who've helped out.
I haven't met Susan. Where's Susan?
She's way up there somewhere in the north in Scotland.
Oh, is she?
I know, long way away.
Oh, hey, see you, Susan.
She's up there. She's
versatile.
She's very clever.
Too Scottish.
See, it's like talent. I keep talking about talent. It's amazing. And also to all our lovely clients, of course, who, the ones who give us the cash to do this silly thing we get to do, which is
I like
great.
them.
We like them. They're very nice people. Come back for more in 2019. So I hope you have a lovely festive period. Whatever you're doing, may it be wonderful and joyous. And for me, and I've got to say, the Doctor,
Jingle bells.
bye.